welcome to A Willing Heart, where we hold conversations to edify one another, to walk out the calling God has placed on our lives.
We are so excited to share what God has placed in our hearts and stories with you.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to dive into the topic of relationships.
Yes, we are. We're going to talk about relationships today and how to have edifying relationships that honor the Lord and how to navigate relationships that we don't know how to do on our own. So let's define relationships first. Relationship meaning is a connection between two or more people, typically based on trust, mutual respect, love, and support. That is the worldly definition of a relationship. And we're going to define a godly relationship straight from the word. So 1 Thessalonians 5:11 is, therefore encourage one another and build one another up, just as you are doing. So what is the best way to define a healthy relationship, do you think?
I think something I was reading the other day when I was going through what we were going to talk about is that us as humans, we're naturally selfish. Like, we weren't created. I mean, we were, but just our human nature, we think of ourselves first, which, in some areas it's not a bad thing. But I think a healthy relationship is thinking of others and thinking of how you can care for them and love them and what they need to a healthy extent. And so, it talks about building one another up. How can we do that?
I love how God literally created Eve for Adam. One of the first relationships was the Lord creating Eve for Adam so that he could have a companion, because he saw he needed.
Well, because in the scripture it says it's not good that man should be alone. So the whole point, God created relationships. God doesn't want us alone. He doesn't want us isolated. He wants us working together in good and healthy relationships. And I just think we have to figure out, how do we do that? How do we care for other people? One thing this week I was thinking about is that, when I was in high school, you're just so ready to get out of this town. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to move out. I'm never going to see any of you people ever again. So when you're young, you don't think about keeping and
eternal relationships.
Just keeping relationships with people. You kind of tend to build more bridges when you're younger until you realize, just because I don't see someone every day or because I've gone to a different season doesn't mean I can't still be kind to those past relationships. I don't have to cut ties completely. And I think that's what I've learned, is that yes, you have your close people, you have your family, but then you can still have different kinds of relationships with so many people, and it it comes in handy. Sometimes you need those people, sometimes they need you, sometimes you work in a you never know what job you're going to change to, you never know where, just seasons change all the time.
Important to end things well. If you can start by defining a relationship. So sometimes you don't know when you meet someone new if it's just going to be an acquaintance, if it's going to be a lifelong friendship. But I think, man, the importance that the Lord has been speaking to me recently is how to minister into healthy relationships, how to see relationships long term. What are you bringing to the table in a relationship? Are you planning to stay and nurture a relationship, or are you planning to ditch?
Well, I mean, one thing is we're so young, and one thing I think about is we've been through so many changes that happen so quickly. You graduate high school, you go to college or do something for a few years, or I've not had, not because of any bad reasons, but I've graduated and only had jobs for 2 to 3 years because I'm young and haven't had years of experience yet. And so you think you just have these quick little relationships. Well, I came into our church and I saw our pastor and many people in the church who, you sit there and he's like, I've known these people for 30 years, and they are not blood. They're family by Christ. And they have these relationships over years. And I saw that and I admired that. And I was like, I am going to cultivate that. I'm going to have that. So the relationships that I build, they're going to last a lifetime. Sorry, you can't get rid of me. It's not happening.
That was defined from the very beginning.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
You can't get rid of me. But
That's so
That
good.
doesn't mean it's a perfect relationship.
Mm-mm.
And so I think what we're sitting here talking about today is like how to have that relationship. Well, okay, you're gonna have conflict. You're
Yeah.
gonna have times where you're gonna upset me, I'm gonna upset you, or you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
excite me, or we're gonna,
Impress and
yeah,
depress,
you're
like
gonna
Pastor Ron
disappoint
says.
me, and or things are gonna be confusing. But like how to go through that conflict got in a godly way and
Mm-hmm.
like in a caring way. Like you can have conflict and
Mm-hmm.
resolve it without ending a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where pride comes in. Like
Absolutely.
our flesh and pride, and I've been loving definitions lately. So pride is a feeling of deep pleasure or satisfaction derived from one's own achievements, the achievements of those with whom one is closely associated, or from qualities or possessions that are widely admired. Um, so how would you define pride?
I just like in my own life, I feel like the pride, like I'm gonna tell you right now, I've done a lot better, but I am a grudge holder. I'm committed. I'm gonna be
You're
committed to hold it.
invested.
I'm gonna be committed to holding that grudge. I am
Yeah.
not gonna let it go. And I've gotten so much better at it. But it's just,
I think that's actually healthy that you're able to define that so quickly, because
mhm,
for me personally, for a long time, I never would have said that I was a grudge holder, or that I harbored resentment, or that I had issues in relationships, because
mm-mm,
I would bury it so deep.
mm-mm,
Like I would bury it and I would leave.
no.
Like
I consciously
serial
know I'm holding a grudge. But
serial runner.
but holding that grudge and having that pride, like it says it's um a feeling derived
Mhm.
from one's own achievements. Or I just think going back to that selfishness, the
Mhm.
pride, it is caring more about yourself and how you feel
Mm.
than the way you're treating that person and what the end goal really should be. It does not mean that your feelings are not valid and that
Mhm.
person, obviously we're just talking kind of generic here. There's so many different situations and
Mhm.
things that can happen. But, it's putting your needs before that other person when they probably are hurt too.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and figuring out how like calmly you can go about that.
What did
No,
Pastor Ron said last week? We were speaking, and he said, "Katie, if you're feeling like this, just know that the other people involved probably are too,
yeah.
because God created us like we are all linked. We are all one. We
Mhm.
all bleed the same blood.
Yeah.
The same color. So like if we're in a relationship and there's some conflict, I'm feeling conflict.
Mhm.
It's probably not one sided.
And what I've learned as I've gotten older is that like it baffles me because sometimes it's just so hard for people to have conversations,
Yeah.
adult conversations. Like there's so much
Oh,
conflict,
yeah.
and I'm like, this what like could they have just like sat down and
Mhm.
talked, or could they have just asked before assuming the
Mhm.
worst? And it's not always easy. I mean, I'm not perfect. I can't say that I haven't done things too, but like conflict is not easy, it's not comfortable,
Mhm.
but it's needed, especially with a brother or a sister in Christ or a friend or a family
Mhm.
member. If you can, and the other party has to be willing too and not
Mhm.
be, angry, but if you can sit down and just be like, this is what I feel, this is what I feel, and like, or ask, like, is this what you meant by that? Or how, like, just having those conversations, like, that can help so much.
I think it's so
And you're gonna have to
important.
do it to continue. I mean, we're gonna have conflict the
Yeah.
rest of our lives.
Well, to have healthy relationships with each other, but if we truly want to be an example for others and to go
Mhm.
out and to share the gospel, like how we treat our one on one relationships with the people that we love and that we're
Mhm.
in connection with is going to bleed through to new relationships and to
Mhm.
what we're fixing to talk about, which is networking.
Mhm.
So let's talk networking.
And networking is such a corporate like
Mm,
lingo, but it's just it's a part of life. Like I think networking is for me in my life, I would call it being intentional.
mhm,
Being intentional in my relationships. I actively seek out relationships with people. I
mhm,
actively, check on people. I actively am just assessing what are the relationships in my life need. Have I met with everyone that I need to meet with? am
Mhm.
i am I watering the relationships in my
What am I
life?
bringing to the table
Yeah.
in the relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think, but me personally, I am like, one word I would use to describe myself is intentional. I'm
Mhm.
probably extra intentional, but like,
Mhm.
I think in life we lack that intentionality. Like sometimes things don't flourish, or like, you haven't seen someone in a while,
Mhm.
and you think about it, but it's like, be intentional, message them.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah,
you're not going to
quick
go to lunch with
sentence.
someone unless you text them and you say, okay, we're going 12 p.m. Tuesday,
Set
like,
a
let's do
time
it.
and a
And
day.
so you
Yes.
have to cultivate those relationships in your life, and that comes with being intentional and just not
Mhm.
letting time pass. Because the other day I was just thinking about it, thinking about my family, and I'm like, I don't want to get to a day where it's too late to do something,
Mhm.
to be with someone and spend the time with my family and my friends and enjoy
Yeah.
that time that we have. I think life, we're so busy, it's so go 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 go, and you're like, oh, I don't have time to like spend with them, and that's okay.
I don't
We
think
can't
we
be everywhere and do
yeah.
everything, but
I don't think we even understand time. Like we have our we have a concept of time, but to we were created to be in heaven with the Lord. Like our time on earth is so important, and God says to write it out on a tablet and to make it clear.
mhm,
And I know that the age in the season that you and I are in, we are opening our eyes to being intentional, to like
mhm,
you said, like we're out of high school, we're out of college, like we are
yeah,
coming into careers, we are coming into
mhm,
our building our own family,
yeah,
having kids of our own that we're taking care of and that we are being influences on. So of course we're having this conversation now because it's something that we are like actively seeking and actively
mhm,
working on. So the intentionality is intense because we want to be good stewards of the time that the Lord has given us here.
yeah. And I think like the question is like, what people may want to know is like, how do we have those? Like, what are some tangible things that people can do to have a healthy relationship and have a godly relationship with, others? Like, what are things that you do in your life to have healthy relationships?
Be honest, number one, first and foremost. Like,
Oof.
how are you going to have a good relationship with someone if you
Mhm.
don't explain to them how you're feeling?
Mhm.
I think, first of all, go to the Lord.
Mhm.
Cast all your burdens, cast all your cares onto the Lord. If you're having conflict or you don't feel heard or understood in a
Mhm.
relationship, first and foremost, go to the Lord and say, God, like, this is how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Please help me, articulate this to that person. And then you have the responsibility to go to that. I mean, the scripture says,
Mhm.
go to one another, go to your brother if you have an issue and talk
Mhm.
it out. Like, have the
Yeah.
responsibility of having a conversation. You have to be honest.
Mhm. You kind of mentioned prayer, like going to the Lord, and I think that is a big thing too. Like, there's been many times
Mm,
in my life where I'm like, okay, I'm seeking a mentor, I'm seeking a certain friendship or this or that, and it's like asking God for that. But then another kind of aspect is like, if you are in conflict and you are, sometimes when you're going through stuff, it's just that anger that's just inside of you that just
mm-hmm,
burns, and you're pray for them. Pray for that
mm-hmm.
person. Pray for
Pray
yourself.
for yourself.
And a
Yeah.
lot of times that changes your perspective and your
Mm-hmm,
attitude towards it, and God
mm-hmm,
works. And so it's just like prayer. Pray for the relationships, pray for those
mm-hmm.
people, pray for yourself to have more of a, positive attitude, or an attitude of like gratitude with your life.
Yeah.
And regardless of what happens, like, God will work in your life, even if, conflict can't be resolved for some reason. Like, God will take care of you, but just prayer, like, pray about everything. That's what he says. Pray about everything.
Yeah. Praying for others, being a trustworthy friend, being intentional. Don't shy away from resolving conflict. Have gratitude. And just, I think, getting out of your own head, getting some perspective. I love watching interviews with people, and,
Mhm.
and the connection that it brings and the different perspectives. That's who the Lord created us to be. He created us to be in community with one another.
Mm-hmm.
He created the the disciples. I can only imagine. I can't wait to talk to them in heaven. Like how different they were. You have Judas, you have Peter, you have all of these different types of men. You have fishermen, you have carpenters, you have scholars, and God brought them all together
Mm-hmm.
for a season. Ooh, that's a good one. That's what we need to talk about too, is he brought them together for a season, and then when he left, he said, "Go out and make nations of
Mm-hmm.
my people." And they all were together, and then they separated.
Yeah.
Like I don't remember how long was it that they were all together with Jesus. Is it
Don't
seven?
ask me. Don't ask.
Okay. We'll research that one.
If we didn't study that, I don't know the answer right now.
But it's so good because they were still in prisons writing each
Mm-hmm.
other. They would have to write each other and then get their other friend to help them get the letters out to the churches needed and to the
Mm-hmm.
cities needed. Like they were together for a season. They learned, they studied, they acted in ministry together, and then they had their
Yeah.
season tour.
Makes me think of like seasons change.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had so many different seasons of my life already at the age of 29. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I've met so many people, and some of those people are not my closest friends today
Mm-hmm.
because life has just brought us to a new city, a new
Mm-hmm.
place, a new thing, like a lot of college friends. But I can't tell you how many people like I'm secretly a cheerleader for on Facebook, and
Yeah.
like I'm
Yeah.
cheering you on even though we're not in a season that's together anymore. But it's like sometimes seasons can make us be like rude to those relationships, as far as like, oh, seasons change, you're not my friend anymore, and I'm gonna tell you that. Well, no, life just brings you in a different way. Like,
Yeah.
just let it naturally happen, and like, you know, I just support those people from afar. I don't
Yeah, the
know.
older that I get, the more I'm learning how to define relationships and when to hold on to a relationship, when to dig my heels in and fight for that
Mhm.
relationship and lift that person up in prayer, and also when to let someone go.
Yeah.
Like when to know that this person needs some time, they're in a different season, they need to
Yeah.
heal. And it's never that relationship stops from my perspective, because if there's something that I'm learning right now in this season is you can pray for someone for every single day, even if
Mhm.
you don't have contact with them,
Yeah. Of
even if you
course.
don't have interaction relationship with them face to face. You can pray for them, and you
Yeah.
can pray for their family, you can pray for their future generations. You
Mhm.
can stand in the gap. Yeah, especially
Mhm.
when people leave, or they, like, with my mom,
Mhm.
she was around until I was like 12, and then she wasn't. And I still, even in my rebellious stage, was still praying for her,
Mhm.
I thought about my mom every single day
Yeah.
up until she passed away. And I think about her even more now. The more that I've healed from my childhood, the
Mhm.
more that I've become a mother. And so I have a different understanding.
Yeah.
And um, I love the fact that I get to pray for relationships that
Mhm.
I didn't have, and celebrate the fact that um, they may not be here in our lives, but they
Yeah.
were here for a season, and every relationship teaches you something.
And I think it's just that like Jesus helps us in all of our relationships
Mm-hmm.
to walk in those with love, grace, and eternal pursuit. Like we're
Mm-hmm.
thinking of something so much bigger than ourselves, and we build
Mm-hmm.
those relationships. And even like, we've talked more about like maybe friendships and people that are closer, but like building relationships with strangers, like just
Mm-hmm.
saying hey to someone, and the connection that you build with those could be life or death for that person, because you may
Yeah.
get the opportunity to share the gospel with them,
Mm-hmm.
So it's like just waking up and being like, for me, it's my Starbucks people. Those people, those
Yes.
people at Starbucks that I pass on my
Yes.
way to work every day that I go to, and everybody's like, why do you pay that much for money for coffee? I'm like, they know me by name, and
Yeah.
they know how I come,
Mm.
and they know the attitude I bring. And I've shared with them that we have this podcast, and the other day they're like, "What are you doing today?" And I'm like, "I'm headed to church." Like, just creating that opportunity
Mhm.
for, I haven't necessarily been like, "Do you believe in Jesus Christ?"
Yeah.
Like, I have not pushed that down their throat, but they know who I am.
Mhm.
And one day we may have more of a conversation for about Christ. And it's just opening up yourself to people that you don't even know,
Mhm.
because it's about their eternity and
Mhm.
where they're going.
Even
And
like I've been getting so many spam calls, and I've been taking the
hello,
opportunity.
do you know Jesus?
Literally, it's what not with every single one,
It's so
but like
funny doing
I
that.
count I counted to me. I counted 3 times this week that I did that.
I
Like,
can't.
and I was like, all right, Lord, check my heart to make sure that I'm bringing you in a healthy manner. But I like they would do their pitch, and I'd say, hey, thank you for your time. I don't need
Mhm.
your service. Like, do you know Jesus Christ?
I
And
love that.
the reactions I've gotten, I got one lady earlier this week who was like, actually, yes, like I do know who
Mhm.
Jesus Christ is. And then I got one guy who was like, no, I don't believe that. And I was like, all right, well, God bless you. But it was like literally a 20-second interaction,
Yeah.
but sharing Jesus with
That's
even the short
such a
ones.
cool story, because I feel like I never would have thought about, like, that being my, like, return to a spam
Mhm.
call, because
Yeah.
you know
They're just doing their job. Like they're making money
yeah.
for their families, and that's what they're called to do. And if I can be one less person that is yelling at them
Mhm.
and showing Jesus for a quick second, then yeah. Not that I don't get irritated because I'm getting like 20 spam calls a day. Like it's
Mm-mm.
insane.
Yeah. Another thing I was gonna kind of like discuss is, like, we live in this world of, like, we're so connected through social media
Mhm.
and different outlets, that it's like, no one's alone. But it's like, I
Oof.
read this thing and it kind of described it as like crowded loneliness.
Hmm.
You can be sitting in a crowd, or you can be sitting on your
Mhm.
phone, and you think there's all these people, but yet you feel so alone.
Alone.
And it's just like, I don't know, what's your perspective on, like, I guess our culture and, like, social media, and
So
like how we feel with it, and how it
what you just said brought me straight back to being right when I moved back down here
mhm
and like came to our church. I would feel so lonely
mhm
in a crowd and like would have to take breaks from hanging out
yeah
with people. I would go home and get on, or like I would go home or I would get in the car and I would go on social media
mhm
and I would just sit in that loneliness. Well, this person's doing this and this person's doing that. And I
mhm
wasn't reaching out to people.
yeah
Like I would feel so alone while also being so overwhelmed with content. Um, and now that I'm so many years past that, I know that being intentional with your screen time is
mhm
extremely important. And like I've been blocking off time, like, okay, I will be on this app for 3 minutes, or
yeah
I'm going to take a break from this app for a month. And um, I deleted TikTok. What was that, last year? Might have been.
I don't remember, it was
I
a
think it
while
was
back.
last year, and I was like, I don't want to scroll mindlessly and take in all this content
Mhm
because for one, my brain can't handle it. It's not
yeah
made for this. And for two, like I want to be intentional with what's coming in versus what's going out.
mhm yeah
And I feel like when I have more time to rest and not put so much in, I have more to give.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, and I think it's just, you know we get on social media to connect with people, and it's a great tool, and there are
Mhm.
some good things, but a lot of times we use it to compare our lives to other people. We
Mhm.
want to get so many likes, and
Mhm.
it's just such a mental battle
Mhm.
with getting on social media, and then the loneliness we feel, and you're not actually building a real relationship
Mhm.
with someone in real life. And so it's just, there's so many people, like, around the world. We feel so connected, yet we're still so alone. And that's how
Mhm.
the enemy wants us. He wants us alone in our mind.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so many days where, like, I'm having a bad day, and I mean, I'll be at church. There's so many times where it used to happen where I'd be at church, and it's like, okay, I know I need to go up to someone. I know I
Mhm.
need to go up to someone and tell them how I'm feeling and have them pray for me or just be there for me. And I'll walk right out the door because that's what the enemy wants me to do. He
Mhm.
wants me alone because he wants me to continue in that and he wants me to feel that. And it's like, no, we're meant to, like, that's why, like, the whole verse that we had earlier was like, we're here to encourage one another and
Mhm.
build one another up. And it's like, you can't do that when you're alone. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's a mental battle. I struggle with mental things and being able to like fight the anxiety and depression in your mind, and I need people around me to be like, that's not true. And you need to stop believing that
Yeah.
and calling that out.
Yeah.
And so,
I think we're in a different generation too.
mhm,
Like, cause you and I, we didn't grow up on social media though. Like,
no. I got my first flip phone when I was in about 5th grade.
mhm.
And I mean flip phone. Like I was texting like it was like
Oh
the
yeah.
the 9 or
Oh
whatever
yeah.
keys where you're like ABC.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had to pay for text messages going in and out, so like you would
Yes.
be like, "Don't text me back" because I had to pay for this.
I think I was 15 when Instagram came out, 14 or 15 maybe. But
High school was when we kind of were getting like social media and
that was
stuff.
just a whole different world. And so my prayer now is for the next generation because for one, there's nothing new under the sun.
Mm-mm.
Like each generation goes through something different, and that is
Yeah,
it's so natural. So I don't want to walk into my kids' generation and be like, you can't use social media. That's not healthy for you because it's here and it's happening. And we
yeah,
get to learn how to use it well and be good stewards of the
yeah.
creation that the Lord has allowed us to create, just like this podcast and being
Mhm.
able to share it on YouTube and Facebook. And,
Yeah.
I think,
Well, our kids are gonna. They were created for such a time as this. They
yes.
were created for this generation. You can limit screen time, different things, but you also know that like they are going to grow up using so much more technology for
Hmm.
more things than you could even think that we like. I didn't even realize that they use so much technology in school. I'm like, what happened to a pen and paper? What's wrong with
Right?
that? What's wrong
iPads
with
and
the pencil?
computers.
So
Do
it's like,
do they still use Scantrons?
probably not.
Like
I don't know, but I don't.
we had to
I'm
pencil
not
in all of our
sure. But
answers.
if I had to guess, no, that's well, they might. I don't know.
I don't
But
know.
so like
Teachers.
they're gonna need to learn how to use things, and
Mhm.
it's just gonna be so different. But I mean, just like anything in the world, there's pros and cons of
Mhm.
using it and using to a fault. But like, yeah, they're made for this, and it's a different generation. But it's like if they're gonna deal with the same things that we
We
dealt
did
with,
same
but it's
thing.
different tools and things that are gonna
Mhm.
be the things that trip them up or
Mhm.
make them struggle, and it's just going to be how we can help them figure out to combat that.
Mhm.
um and
And
I think it's good.
how to have intentional relationships with one another.
Mhm.
It can be on a phone. It can be in person. It can be well, it's not through email anymore. For me, it was through email. I remember the first boy I ever like it was
Email.
yeah, it was AOL,
Mhm.
like
Oh,
iChat. Yes, come on, not
well, I
iChat.
used
What was it?
AOL, like, but that was like the chat AOL,
Yeah.
like chat, but
Oh, I
not
would
like.
email. I emailed. Yeah.
I never emailed people.
I did.
Weird.
I know. What was your biggest takeaway from this conversation?
I don't know. We had so many things. I think one thing that we didn't really get into, but you talked about, well, maybe we did talk about it, but being intentional was a big thing, and
Mhm.
just being proactive and thinking about the relationships. But
Mhm.
we didn't talk about this, but confidence and relationships, like confidentiality, builds
Mm.
trust in relationships. So I think just being, praying for others, being intentional, but also for,
Yeah,
turning
that's
it back
good.
on you. Like when someone tells you something or someone's trying to come to you, be that trustworthy friend.
Mhm.
Don't be a gossip. Don't go around and tell everything. Like there's so many times where you're like, I have information, I want to share this, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's not super harmful, but for that person to know when they come to you that what they say is
It's not
confidential,
going anywhere.
that builds so much trust and builds that, foundation in a relationship to be able to have an actual good relationship built on trust. It's so important because it's needed, and when that's how you build that healthy
Mhm.
relationship. So I think that, and like one thing too is growing through conversations. I mean, that's how we've grown. You have
Mhm.
tears in your eyes?
I have
I'm
tears in my
like,
I have tears in my eyes because
I'm
I'm thinking. Because when you said that, I was like, I cannot think of one time anybody has ever come to me and been like, Brianna has told me this. Like,
sorry.
literally never in our relationship. Like, you have been that person who's been
Yeah,
confidential. And I know that if I come to you, you have integrity and you are,
yeah,
for one, I feel like in our relationship, we're intentional with, hey, this information doesn't go anywhere, or
yeah,
hey, like this doesn't really matter. But
yeah,
you've been a person that I can come to, and
yeah.
it's not going to get exposed. So thank you.
Well, yeah, I love you. I am not perfect. I think we're human
Yeah.
and things that, but there was a point in my time where I was like, I want to minister to others. And if people are coming to me with their information,
Mhm.
I just felt this conviction that it's like that needs to stay private. No one needs to know about that unless they tell me they don't care if
Mhm.
I share things, if it's not important. Well, that's one thing, but that is what's going to build that trust.
Mhm.
And because I know when I come to someone, it allows that person to be vulnerable and to really open up about what's going on without being afraid that everyone's going to find out what they're dealing with. Because for me, oh, sorry. I'm a super open person. I'm like, I'll tell the world what I'm going through, and I do a lot of
Absolutely.
times
Yeah.
because I know that what I'm going through, someone else is going through. There's
Mhm.
so many people that they don't want other people to know, and they
Mm-mm.
don't want, at least they don't want the crowd to know. They don't
Mhm.
want like, the tons of people to know. They need someone. They need it to be confidential, and I
Mhm.
think that's just so important. But we live in a culture where our human nature, we want to gossip, we want to say things, and
Mhm.
sometimes it slips out and we make mistakes, but it really does need to be confidential if it's important and that person doesn't want you speaking on it, and that's what's going to build that healthy relationship. And then that way you can grow in conversation because you have that
Mhm.
trust. And so I think that's what's just important to me and my takeaway from today.
Yeah. I think it's so important, and I have had a crash course in that, especially like being married to Ethan. Like, Ethan has a different role. He is a pastor,
Yeah.
and he has helped me understand like why to be why to be that person. Like, it's a relationship with the Lord. Like, when you
Mhm.
come to the Lord, like, he's there to take to cast all your cares and your worries onto him.
Mhm.
He's there, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So if I want to truly like be an example of Christ, that's how I want
Mhm.
to treat a friend. I want them to understand when they come to me, no matter their age, if it's someone
Yeah.
older than me, or especially because we get to help young adults, like,
Mhm.
it's not going anywhere.
On the flip side of that a little bit is like in our conversations a lot we talk and you'll say that you know something like, well, it's hard to explain,
Oh,
but we'll
yeah.
talk about something and
Yeah.
we're like, well, we know this, but even just being that trustworthy person to say, don't tell me.
Yes, yes, yes,
Don't tell,
yes,
like, don't
yes.
feel like you need to share that
Yep,
because I know that you don't need to, and you know that you don't need to. But I'm
yep.
just gonna reaffirm,
So,
don't tell me
yep.
because I don't need to. And getting to
Mhm.
a point in your life where, like, our human side, we're like, oh, I want to know the tea, like I
Mhm.
want to know what's going on.
Mhm.
But then the other side is like, you know what? Don't involve me. Just
That is
don't tell
that
me.
is
Don't
exactly
tell me. I
the
don't want to
season
know.
I'm in. If you need me for it and I can be a
Hmm.
help to the situation, okay.
Yeah.
But if you've got it covered, don't tell me.
If you're not
No.
a part of the equation, if you're not involved,
Correct.
you don't need to know.
Hmm.
And so I think that's kind of where we're talking about and building that trust. But we can kind of wrap up. Was there anything like you really felt like you wanted to end the podcast on, or like any takeaways? I
Mm,
have a little something to share. So before we
oh.
end, kind of just want
Um,
to.
Go ahead.
Well, when I share it, that's gonna be the end. So.
uh just be intentional with the people in your life and the relationships, and feel encouraged that we're here until the Lord takes us home.
Mhm.
Like, and we have so many opportunities to create new
Mhm.
relationships, to steward current relationships, and to pray and be there for other people's relationships, because God is a God of restoration, and He
Mhm.
wants us to be in unity with one another. So
Yeah,
um, we can pack heaven.
I love that. My thing is, I just really wanted to talk about isolation. I feel like just wanted to share with people that may be feeling this, that like
Mm.
God doesn't want you to be isolated. He does not want you to be alone. So if you're feeling that, that is not from the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know how to not be isolated, find a church, find a friend. If you can't find a friend, pray for a friend. God doesn't want you alone. And I believe that if you may be feeling that, like God wants to fix that in your life, and He wants to bring you someone so that you don't feel isolated. Isolation is not from the Lord.
Amen.
And He can help you with that. Just pray for that. Ask God to bring you a good friend, bring you someone to encourage you and edify you in your life. And He will do that, and I believe that. And I just thank y'all for joining today, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Facebook or Instagram.
You can stream A Willing Heart on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts.
Don't forget, all God needs is a willing heart. Have a great day.